Welcome to episode 88 of Twinning Strategy, the promise of enterprise AI integration, hype or reality. In about 20 minutes, we're going to ask the question, actually ChatGPT is going to ask the question, on a scale of 1 to Skynet, how much should we trust enterprise AI right now? So we will get back to that question, but looking forward to a great conversation.
That's a good question. Let's kick it off. Here we go.
So yes, great question indeed. And we now have Steve Cooper with us to talk about this subject and answer this cool question. And Steve is an enterprise AI implementation consultant. So cool subject, cool guest. And Steve, share with us what's on your mind. And you're muted. Try this again. Take two, Steve.
All right, here I am. Sorry, I'm muted when the music came on.
It was some agentic AI that shut off your.
Yes. It's already impacting my life. Thank you, Elena, and thanks, guys. This is a real pleasure to be here. I've been watching your podcast, listening for a while, and it really is a pleasure. So thank you for having me. So the question is, what's on my mind? So I think this is the same question on a lot of people's mind, which is, what will the job market look like 1 to 3 years from now? And what that means is, what are the roles going to be? What are the responsibilities going to be? How are we going to do performance measurements? How are we going to grade people on their ability to rise throughout the organization? And what skills do they need to have? And I think about that all the time, because you're watching in real time the way work is changing, whether people like it or not. How AI is now getting integrated in the way people operate on a day-to-day basis. And also there's that kind of overriding concern or interest in what's next. Like, where is this going to go? How does it impact my company? And ultimately, how does it impact me?
And, the other thing that is on my mind a lot is, so we were talking about you're in your son's room. He's off at college. Jeff and Elena have 2 kids, each have 2 kids off, and they're in college. And my kids are a little younger, but eventually, and I keep thinking, like, what are they going to do? And what are they going to, if they study something in college, how is it going to even be? How can they even guarantee that it's even going to be pertinent? And I think that goes for everybody. That goes for, like, not only the college kids, but, like, how do you know that what you're doing now is setting you up properly for the future?
Well, or maybe we have to jump past that and just say, let's just assume that it isn't, right? I mean, the speed at which things are changing, like, whatever it used to be, you would learn some topic, for 4 years, and maybe you got a graduate degree and whatever, and that's how you knew stuff. And now you've got, like, the ability to essentially have a PhD in any topic, like at your fingertips. And so I wonder if there's even, like, just a change in the way we have to think about, kind of knowledge and how we learn. It's not just a matter of how are we going to use AI to do the things we're doing today, but how do we think about using AI to do things that we've never done before because we couldn't.
And I would actually add to this and say, how do we learn continuously? Because what we learned, right? You said, well, we've learned for 4 years and it lasted us like a lifetime. Right now, you learn something and it lasts you 2 weeks.
Well, I think the challenge is exactly that. And the AI environment is changing so quickly. Every 6 months, your AI playbook is thrown out the window. It's getting better. And so I think a key is, how do I use it to improve my ability to survive in the marketplace? But also, how do I keep, to your point, Elena, how do I keep learning and improving myself in parallel? And how do I balance my time between training myself, researching, getting better at things, and then also doing? And that is hard. And especially when you're at you're at work, for example, today, and you're seeing AI being implemented in your company. You're also at home using it. And at home, you're probably using a more advanced version than you are at work because, procurement and approvals and government, they always get in the way. But at home, you just, pay for the upgrade and you're there. So, so what happens when, like, I'm doing my work, okay? I'm using AI to, I don't know, find information or rewrite my emails or summarize a document, some of the basic tools. And, since I'm a consultant, that's kind of like my world. I'm sure a lawyer or somebody could have a different conversation. But, and companies are saying, okay, now that you have it, you should be doing things, you should be doing more things. You should be doing things faster.
Right.
But they're not saying, okay, and here's how we're going to help you do that. We're going to block off the afternoon. We're going to bring in experts twice a month. We're going to have workshops. We're going to learn from each other so that we're knowledge sharing our best ideas with each other. So we're all, all ships rise. That I don't know how prevalent that is. I'm not in everybody's company, but I think it's critical because otherwise you're using AI for your day-to-day, you're writing your emails, whatever, but you're not really getting better at it. You're just maybe relying more on it and you're becoming a little bit lazy and you're creating what's called the AI slop, which I don't know the term, but it's the crisis of quality. But you're not really taking better advantage of what's there for you. So I think companies also have to take it upon themselves to focus their attention on helping people get better at it. So when they say, well, he should be done with that by now, or this isn't so good, the quality of this has gone down. What are you as a company going to do to help that person and help that person and help the teams?
Yeah, but this is like an intersection of a problem of leadership and training and whatever, where people, like, companies do not tend to cut people a lot of slack. We bring somebody in for their potential and then we decide that they have to develop their own potential or else they're failing to do what we want to do. And I think that's an unfortunate position, but I think it's going to take a lot more than the tools sort of outstripping our ability to understand them for companies to realize that they need to train people in different ways. I think it's going to take a long time to adapt.
Well, and I think importantly, and Steve, you started to talk about this. I mean, you mentioned sort of the regulatory and the, and sort of all the rules and policies and whatever it is I think that companies are, companies are they're like, giant juggernauts. They're very hard to turn, the ship in any way. And so I think what we're seeing is kind of like, the things that we're seeing people do with AI are like, oh, we can replace and get rid of people right now. And that is actually not the real promise of the AI. Like I always like to say we're finger painting with AI right now. We don't know what an AI Rembrandt would look like because all we're doing is we're looking at the jobs that it could do for us. But, if you look at the history of marketing, since that's sort of Elena and my field or whatever, if you look at the history of marketing, the jobs that exist today in marketing weren't even, like, they didn't even make any sense. They didn't exist. There were no SEO experts. There were no, social media content experts because there were no phones for people to, to look at all this stuff on. And so over time, all these new jobs have been created. And I think that the current disruption that's happening is companies looking at their workforce and being like, oh, we could have AI do that. Well, question mark whether you can actually have AI do it well, number one. But number two is you're sort of missing the point, which is what is it that we're not able to do at all today that we could be doing if we really thought about how AI could be used?
Well, I also think that there is a change management piece of it, right? That's what the companies are not doing because they're looking at a KPI and AIs in terms of productivity, right? Rather than saying, well, what's the change management? How do we upskill our workforce, right? So Steve, that's what you were talking about, right? There is an ask, but not yet a mass movement in change management, in upskill, in standards, in rules and regs. So I think we're seeing a lot of the Wild West. Is that what you see with your clients, Steve?
I see a lot of ambition, but not a lot of understanding or even commitment I mean, they all talk about we want to do this, but I think about white collar jobs are going away, right? That's what we all heard. And companies are saying, to your point, we can have AI do that, right? You guys have brought up so many points. I'm trying to juggle them in my head. But I think the true value that leaders can bring in whatever level, at the C level, at the director level, at the manager level, is thinking more about how to be more analytical and strategic in their role, and how to be using their heads, their brains rather than their fingers all the time.
Right.
And that skill, when you talk about like our kids in college, right? I think about, is it better for my child to understand how to collect information and research and write a paper? Or is it more important for him to understand what the topic of that paper truly means and be able to dissect it and look between the cracks and think broader than, well, I have to put this 5-page essay together by Friday, so I'm just going to have to jot some stuff down. And you can extrapolate that and you can put that in the workforce, where as a leader you can walk in and, for marketing, for example, right, rather than create the spreadsheets and pump out some data points, which AI can do for the most part. The real value of a marketing employee is understanding truly what that data means and be able to use up words and be able to influence people and be analytical and strategic. And by the way, also use the AI and train the teams and get the most value out of the AI. So, a lot of people like to be heads down at work, right? A lot of people just don't leave me alone. I'm just going to do my stuff. Fine. I think those people need to be rethinking it, because those are the type of things that may not be around in 1 to 3 years. But by picking your head up and looking around and saying, okay, what does this truly mean? And having leaders top down who are saying, that's the value that I want you to bring. Then I think that then people can truly grow and you can really get the best out of people, and they could be a little more confident that there's a future for them versus AI is going to take my job away.
Well, I think, as you were talking, I was sort of thinking about, what it must have been like when the printing press first sort of appeared, right? And this view of like, the view of intellectualism and and knowledge, et cetera, was essentially like the ability to, like, very few people knew how to read. Most people who were sort of, we'll call them knowledge workers, were just basically scribes who just copied stuff and whatever. And so basically, you could have taken that moment and looked at it from the perspective of like, wow, like, knowledge is dead. The printing press is, the printing press has happened. We don't need any of these, knowledge workers anymore, or whatever. And I wonder sometimes if we're at that same moment, right? Like at, that same sort of thing of like, there's something that we don't even see yet what's possible. Like the idea that the printing press caused this actual explosion of knowledge, because suddenly you could, share information, not, just about like the 3 topics that people had books about, at that point, but about anything. And suddenly you have this explosion of, people, writing fiction or writing, about, whatever, kinds of topics it is that happens. I wonder if we're sort of overestimating and underestimating AI at the same time.
I think you're onto something there, but I think the thing that the argument that people make that this is different is that AI is evolving its capabilities faster than we are, as opposed to, like the printing press, we had 100 years to kind of adapt, right, as a species. The internet, we've had several decades to adapt as a species to it, whatever. But AI it has the potential, and we don't know, right? We're still in the early days here, but it has the potential to change fundamentally on the scale of the industrial revolution, has the potential that it's going to change that every 3 years, every 5 years, whatever. And so there might be a difference. I'm not arguing that there is, but there might be a difference in what's going on.
what I see, Elena, you asked me, what am I seeing? I'm still seeing companies really focus on short-term results. And, how are we going to hit our quarter number? How are we going to hit our end of year number? And they say that they want to embrace AI and they say that it's important, but then they tell you, well, we're worried about, we don't want you to use it yet. We got to go through these loopholes first, or, we can get you a pilot version, but, only this team will be using it, not that team. Because we still want you to focus. We don't want you to be spending your time doing that. We do, but we don't. We want you to focus your time on getting these results out the door. And I think we need that kind of shift in thinking where, short-term focus is going to change or not going to change. It's up to the company. It's up to the leadership of that company. That's fine. But adding the element of looking towards the future, and truly, if you truly do care about your employees and truly do care about your company surviving, this should be priority number one. And I know I'm going to get slack for that, whatever, but priority number 1.5, because, hey guys, it's coming, right? Like the train has left the station, and if you're not on it, then you're out the door. And so again, I feel like when it comes to the future of jobs, especially in the white collar market, I think it's those who can think about utilizing AI strategically and saying, okay, if I have for example, I'm in operations, right? At the end of the day, I can use AI to automate tasks, or I could, you talk about productivity, right? You talk about jobs going away. Okay, fine. Let's figure out how to deconstruct this problem. We have a problem, right? Our invoices keep adding up and we never are able to get through them, or whatever. Okay, let's use AI to let's break that down. Let's implement AI to kind of automate a bunch of that, do some checks. We need people involved always. We can't fully rely on it. Fine. Maybe those people have a career and a future because that's their role. Fine. But now, okay, I hired you to be my accountant, for example. Be an accountant. Don't just be a number cruncher. Don't just be a guy heads down. Let's talk about the impact. And that's where I think this needs to go. I think people need to be thinking more about how do we get true value out of our employees versus how do we get output.
Yeah, but we have this construct.
And my question is, at the enterprise level, right?
Yeah.
Or you're saying the priority of making the quarter did not go away, right? Which clearly that's a business, right? There's Wall Street or private investors looking at you every quarter. Okay.
We lost Elena.
There's the internet problem.
It's hey, I stopped her from talking.
Yeah.
Whatever she was about to say.
It doesn't want to hear my answer, I guess.
I was gonna jump in with a slightly different. Oh, you're back. You're back. Okay,
yeah, I'm back. And then I was saying that there is a reality in terms of how much data needs to come together for AI to work at the enterprise level. And that means simple things like, cleaning, normalizing, passwords, integrating. How much of that do you see in reality happening already? And how well do the organizations understand that that's what they need to do to get themselves ready?
Well, you actually hit the nail on the head, because at the end of the day, garbage in, garbage out. And this hasn't changed. I mean, how long have we been talking about when we implement ERP systems, we implement CRM systems? It's the same conversation. The better the cleaner the data, the better, and then you spend 3 years cleaning the data. And then in the meantime, you got people spinning their wheels trying to make up for the wrong data. And then, talk about productivity. Well, that's key, Elena. And that's a really hard thing to do, especially in these larger legacy companies who really never focused on it. Like one of the use cases I was working on is creating a knowledge base, right? So I want to say, pull up the latest proposal that we did on sports analytics, or give me the latest research we did on the marketing trends in pharma, for example. You want that information to be able to come to you. I mean, that's really what a major value prop of AI is. But there's so many versions of those reports. There's so many versions of those proposals. It's in so many different locations. They're named differently. They're named differently. They have permissions on them that may not, like, those are like in the weeds things that no one really wants to talk about, but they matter, because if I implement something and those things aren't taken into account, I'm going to spend more time trying to beat up the AI system and find it than if I just, email somebody or if I just look for it myself.
And that too is the change management that's overlooked. Everybody thinks, oh, AI is here. Yeah, sure, it's here, but let's just find the data that it can read, right? So on my end, the healthcare data, that is the weeds.
But there's still like change management. There's still people who haven't gotten past, using an abacus or handwriting their billing or whatever on like a ledger. Like there are companies that are still way back in digital transformation back when like when it started. And so it's the change management problem has been around forever. It's just coming more and more to a head as we dive deeper into these capabilities that can potentially push people forward. I think it's an interesting situation, right? I think, Steve, it's probably job security for you that there are going to be companies in 10 years who are still 20 years behind everybody else, and for whatever reason they have the world hasn't figured out how to automate them out of business, but they haven't figured out how to become efficient at it. So I suspect you're going to be in high demand in 10 years for those as a companies.
Well, so before I actually get to the question that I posed at the very beginning from ChatGPT, I do think the interesting thing that's going to happen, though, from a competitive perspective, is at some point it's going to be so relatively easy for a small company to essentially scale up and do things, that small companies were never able to do, that it may actually create a higher level of pressure on these companies that have essentially, I worked at one for many, many years. Basically it's sort of been like, well, we don't really need to catch up with the technology because we don't, it's not that important. And it's an interesting question about whether or not AI has democratized enough stuff that if you don't do that, you could get really, sort of knocked out of the running really quickly, which leads me to our original question that we said we were going to hit about 20 minutes in, which is, I'll pose this to you. On a scale of 1 to Skynet, how much should we trust enterprise AI right now?
Well, I'll give the answer of it depends. But I would say not too much yet at this point, because of what you're talking about, Elena, and around the accuracy of the data. The need, the change management piece is critical, and companies aren't really sure how to balance change management with getting stuff, getting day-to-day stuff done. And change management, if you always look at those, consultant slides, it's always kind of on the bottom, right? It always kind of like, we constantly have to be doing change management, and maybe there's like a lot of big excitement over in the beginning of an effort, but it kind of dies off after saying like, I can't attend this meeting because I got this other thing going on. Oh, I can't fill out that survey because I have this other. And then little do they know that when those pieces don't get filled in, then the value of the implementation just keeps going down and down and down. So, and because enterprise AI is not growing as fast, like I said earlier, not growing as fast as kind of commercial AI. And people at home are using the tools differently and they're more powerful. And you may get some issue around adoption when, for example, I'm at home using, really, sharp knives and state-of-the-art fridge and, air fryer. And then I go to work and I'm using, a microwave from 1995 or something like that. Fork. And then I'm like, well, yeah, at home, I'm doing so much more at home than I am doing here. And then you get into a whole bunch of other psychological issues. So I don't think we're there yet, because you still need a lot of manual manipulation to get an AI tool out the door. You still need to do these data things. You still need to do these change management things. And yes, there are going to be like McKinsey, for example. They launched Lily, which is their knowledge base tool. It took them 3 years and a massive team of IT folks and strategy folks and offshore folks, and they're in a good place. But 3 years, that's for you to stick around and wait for that value to be presented to you is I commend you for that, but not a lot of people would do that.
So there's another angle of that question. There's the dystopian angle of that question. We got into this earlier, but the Skynet, of course, being the the computer that destroys the world, right? I just for the sake of that particular question, do you see that? Where do you see the negatives? Do you see this kind of getting? Where do you stand on the? I think particularly in the enterprise space, AI could cause real damage, real world impact by doing something really, really bad. I mean, we've seen these kinds of things in the past, right? We saw those. What was that? Several years ago, there was this AI glitch in the market where we lost, I forget what it was, like 10, 20% of the value just for a few minutes. And I'm sure a lot of people lost their shirt because of that. Where do you stand on that piece? And how do you tell the CEOs or the COOs or whoever you're working with, how do you get them comfortable with AI when there's a lot of people fear-mongering about AI out there?
It's truly important to understand that there still is a role for the human being when it comes to AI. And as you deconstruct your workflows and build AI to automate it and have AI agents talking to AI agents, which is where this is all going. And yes, could they start getting together and try to take over the world? Maybe. But as you're building that out, you need to create, as best you can, strict compliance boundaries where an individual or a team of individuals have to be involved before the next step can happen. And can AI get so smart that it overrides that? Yeah, of course. But before that happens, let's pretend it can't, and let's get ourselves involved in it and make sure that we're not just flipping a switch, walking away and expecting everything to work perfectly. We still have a role in this, which actually, is a opportunity for careers going forward. And we still have to not be lazy and think that they're going to take care of everything themselves. We still have to be involved, and we still have to make sure that there are eyes on it, rather than just saying we trust it, let it go.
I would throw another thought, and we just brought it up pretty recently, just now, on the subject of AI evolving much faster than we are, right? So I would loosely paraphrase Darwin's notion that it's not the strongest that survives, but the one that's most capable of changing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And here we are looking at a phenomena that is making humans to change much faster than we are comfortable. And I think one of the very acute impacts that people don't really talk about, they talk about the doomsday, right? But they don't talk about the fact that on a large scale population cannot change that fast. And it's going to be those who can change at that crazy speed that would do well. What do you think about that one, Steve?
Well, I think you're right. And I don't want to sound doom and gloom. I think there's tremendous opportunity here. There's tremendous opportunity to get things done faster and also individually change, your skill set. And I think there's opportunity for all of that. And we just have to embrace it. And we have to have people around us who want to embrace it too, and are patient enough and motivated enough and creative enough to do it. But I think patience is key, and understanding how difficult this whole thing is at the end of the day. I mean, back to the data, like, this thing is really difficult. You can't just drop it in a box and then expect to open it up in a month and it all works. So we have to commit. We have to be patient, and we have to bring people along with us so that collectively we're successful, and we want to get the most out of it we can.
Well, I think importantly, we also need to, I'll add to your list of, we have to plan. We have to have a vision, right? If you don't have a vision, you will, what's that phrase, like, when you don't know where you're going, every road will lead you there, or whatever it is. It's like, I think, unfortunately, I think, we've seen even in recent years what happens when we don't plan for the unexpected. We don't plan for change. I'm thinking about the pandemic and so forth. Like if we had known or had thought through what's going to happen when a pandemic comes along, like, it wouldn't have been great, but it could have been an awful lot better than it was. And instead, it was just this kind of like, we don't know what to do. And now, and we're still sort of living some of the pain of that now, because people are still, relitigating whether we did it the right way, or didn't do it the right way, or whatever. And I think, the danger with AI is that it's not like, it's not going to go away like a pandemic. It's going to be around. And so we're going to either end up with it, sort of taking us someplace we never intended for it to go, or we could really think about it. And I think that will play out for every single company, company by company. Do they have a plan? Do they have a vision? Or are they going to just allow AI to sort of happen the way it happens? And I think, unfortunately, I think that we will see companies that allow it to happen, and you will see, I think, some major companies, big brands that have been around forever, fail as a result, and new companies that will come out of nowhere because they're better. They basically don't have that baggage that they have to kind of, lug around with them. Eric, you're on mute, I think. If you're,
yeah,
Eric, you're muted.
Sorry. So my this is what happened with the computer industry. This is what happened with the internet. So this is that what you're saying, Jeff, is definitely the case, that there's companies who are killing it, who are going to be killed by it in a few years. Well, so we're over the half an hour point, and as I mentioned to you before we started, we like to go around and have everybody give one thing that they want to leave our audience with. Steve, what I didn't tell you, but you may know if you've watched our episodes before, is I always make the guests go first. It's just for our own pleasure, I guess. So
sure.
What's one thing you'd like to leave our audience with, Steve?
So, as my dad always says, in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. And to your point, Jeff, if you can keep your eyes open, and if you can truly commit to planning and creating that future state and driving you and your team and your company towards that future state, then you will do well in this upcoming world that we're going to live in. So that is what I want to leave you with, which is, I think the true success stories are going to be those that are thinking about ways to use it versus how to use it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. Steve, before I give my one thing, what's the best way for people to connect with you, reach you, if they want?
So my email is, there it is.
There you go.
Thank you. That's my email.
All right. Awesome. Well, I will say, I'm going to sort of build on that point. I think, I just think it's really important to recognize that we don't really, right now, we're in this moment where all we can see is the disruption that's coming, but we can't see sort of what comes after that, and something will come after that. And, despite all the craziness that we live with in our current world, things do improve over time, and technology does lead to, better things and better standards of living and all sorts of things like that. And so I just have this optimistic view, but I do think there is a period of disruption we're going to have to go through first. And I will pass it to Elena.
And mine would be about change management. And that change management, now that AI is here, is going to be a way of business. It's going to be a constant change because of the speed of evolution of AI. So I hope that companies are very kind of thoughtful about it and make it very much a way of business moving forward.
Yeah, and my one thing is actually there. We didn't quite get to this point, but it's related to some of the points that you all have made already, which is is there going to be a shift in jobs? In other words, what people do internal to a company, or is it a shift on an industry level? In other words, will it just be? In other words, like as Jeff was pointing out, there were many of the jobs that people are now worried about losing didn't exist before the internet existed. So the question is the shift going to be to something that we've never thought of before, or is it that, as you were saying before, Steve, like the person who's doing the accounting can what the tasks that they are doing to something else, or maybe the role that they're doing. And I'm just interested to see as things move forward, how that shifts. And going back to the point we talked about earlier, and how does that affect how we talk to our college and almost college age kids that we're trying to advise on how to handle the upcoming future. Well, Steve, thank you so much for joining us. This has been a great conversation, and we really appreciate it.
Thank you. I had a great time. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Absolutely.